And now for the reason I imagine a lot of you came here was to hear from the Riverside County Sheriff's Office about medical marijuana. And we also have with us Victoria Burns from the medical marijuana ID card program, Riverside County, along with Captain Kilday and Lieutenant Thetford from the Palm Desert Police Office, with their sheriff's officers. I want to preface this first by saying, you know, there are some people here who probably have some bad feelings about the sheriff's office here in Riverside County who are patients because their lives have been affected by actions of them. I don't want this to turn into any kind of a vitriolic episode. The fact is, the sheriff's office and what they were doing wasn't wrong necessarily. It all depends on how you interpret the law. They interpreted it one way in the past, and we interpreted it another. And the problem is that Proposition 215 wasn't written very well. It was way too general. Now, I understand the people who wrote Proposition 215 had this kind of Pollyanna attitude, that they thought, well, the voters of California vote to allow medicinal marijuana and for patients to use it. Well, our elected officials and our law enforcement will get behind the people of California, the spirit and intent of the proposition, and carry out the will of the people. Well, that isn't what happened. And a lot of jurisdictions took the attitude that Proposition 215 only gives people a defense in court. And that's not an unreasonable position to take. First of all, in the voters' pamphlet, the proponents of Proposition 215 even said it was only a defense in court. So that's the way it went. So we had to get that changed, and it took a long time. But finally a bill got through and signed by the governor, Senate Bill 420, which gave more direction to the police on how the law is to be enforced. Now, when I first started this group back in 2000, or 1999, one of the first people who helped me get this organization going was David Herrick. And David is a former San Bernardino County Sheriff's officer, and we used to have all these long discussions, and he would lecture me about how police need something concrete that they can sink their teeth into. Like, if you're going more than 45 miles an hour down Date Palm Drive, you're going to get a ticket. They need something very specific, and 215 didn't give them that. And 420 does, though. 420 finally gives law enforcement the specifics they need to enforce the law as it should be enforced. So, we have today with us, Captain Craig Kilday and Steve Thetford, right? From the Palm Desert Police Department. They are sheriff's officers. Palm Desert contracts with the city, the Riverside County Sheriff's Office to provide law enforcement. They don't have their own here. But they're here speaking on behalf of both the city of Palm Desert and, I believe, the county sheriff's office. And yes, give us a round of applause. And Doug, do you have that list of questions?
Yes.
And what we're going to do is, it's going to be a lot of questions and answers, but so maybe you might just want to start with the first question. If you want, you can read it, or I can read it, and you can just answer.
We appreciate you having us here at the meeting today. It's the first time that we've been here, according to Laney. I can't think of... Obviously, medical marijuana has been a topic in our community here, with Canna Health being open and I think one in Palm Springs. As introductions, again, I'm Captain Craig Kilday out of the Palm Desert Station. Steve Thetford's a lieutenant there. And we're in charge of 3 contract cities and about 6 unincorporated communities. This is a little bit of an introduction. And just a couple of comments so we're kind of on the same page. When we're speaking up here, we're just speaking for the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. I can't speak for other law enforcement agencies, whatever they be. We're just speaking for the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. And as Laney kind of said, we understand that MAPP is passionate about their interpretations and their views of both SB 420 and the Compassionate Act, but the way it's written, there is other interpretations and other views that could be out there also. So I just hope we're kind of on the same page. Lanny gave me these 5 questions, and is it Doug?
Doug, yes.
Doug had some follow-up questions, so we'll try to answer those. Some of the way the questions are written, though, is they want 100% answers, guaranteed and absolute. And I'm here to tell you, I can't give you 100% absolute guaranteed answers. So if that's agreeable with everybody, this is a gray area. There's some gray areas involved here with the law and SB 420, and we're trying to work through those. So with that, let's go to the first question, Lanny.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, H&S 11-11162.71E states that a patient with a state-issued ID card and whose amount of marijuana either under cultivation or in possession does not exceed state guidelines will not be arrested. How will a Riverside patient be assured that they will not be subject to a citation or confiscation of their medicine? Obviously, our recommendation and suggestion is that you get the county ID card. Because for law enforcement, the biggest problem we have, if all there is a recommendation letter, is verification. How do we verify? And if you have the county ID card, and correct me if I'm wrong, Victoria, but they verify for us that the doctor is a doctor in the state of California or in the United States. They verify who the patient is, and what's the last one you verify?
Well, to get an ID card, you have to be a resident of the county, and you have to have your doctor's recommendation, and you have to have a valid ID, and the card costs $100. When you come into the office, then we take the recommendation, and we actually verify with your physician. We have to verify that the physician is in fact licensed to practice in the state of California. And once everything is verified, then we either ship out or call you and say your card's ready. It takes about 10 days.
So that's how you get the ID card. Our recommendation is that you get the ID card. Can I tell you 100% if you have the ID card and you're within limits that you won't be confiscated or arrested? No. But I can tell you the vast majority of the time, if you have the ID card and you're within the limits, you're on your way.
Are you able to indicate any of the exceptions that you are able to tell us that would
Well, obviously if it's
an arrest?
a fraudulent card, or we get it up on the internet that it says it's an invalid number.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Or if you happen to possess more than the amount stated by law. And one of the things that Lanny said is he explained that Senate Bill 420 made things very clear. Senate Bill 420 really helped us out quite a bit because it establishes the ID card process. And if you read through all the legislation that we have so far for this issue, you can read the spirit of it. The spirit of it really pushes towards the ID card because it is something that gives us an absolute. It allows us to go with the spirit of the law. Unfortunately, Senate Bill 420 still stops short of saying it's required. It still says that it's an optional program. We're here to tell you, in order to cooperate with you and to give you the best effort we can, is that's probably the best solution we have. So other than having the card, having the less than prescribed amount, that's probably the best guarantee you can get. The next question was, what are the protocols and procedures of the Riverside County law enforcement to protect the rights of patients who associate with the state of California in order to collectively and cooperatively to cultivate marijuana for medical purposes as provided in the Health Safety Code section 11362.775. And then the question goes on to say, how will patients growing collectively and cooperatively be assured that they will not be arrested or subjected to citation and or medicine under cultivation and in possession of their co-op or collective is not confiscated? Well, again, we just as an example, one of the things that we did in the city of Palm Desert, since this was a new thing, is we actually went to Can Help. We met with Stacy Hoggenthal. He actually gave us, it was very hospitable to let us walk in to see how he keeps his records. That's important to us because we want to know, we understand the spirit of the law. We wanted to learn how you keep records. Keeping records of letters, keeping records of photocopies of ID cards, and if you have those individuals that happen to have an exception where the doctor said that they can have more of an amount, that would be what we would suggest at this point. Because, again, it states that it's not clearly stated in the law exactly how it's going to be regulated, but to answer the question from the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, having documentation of who your patients are, photocopies of the cards, and the amounts, especially if they exceed. at that point. That's the guarantee that we can give you.
And also the suggestion would be, and I'm not an expert on 420, but the number, who's going to have the mature plants, who's going to have the immature plants, if you're having a collection, and by what name goes with what group of plants. And again, photocopies of the ID cards would really be a help. So if you got 10 in the collective or cooperative, then you should have 10 ID cards that we could have photocopies of.
Question? Yes, ma'am.
If you have a letter of recommendation, and even though the card is really a volunteer program, but it's best to have the card, I have mine. But if you just have your letter of recommendation and you're stopped, and will they honor that and verify it with the doctor?
That's one of those ones on a case-by-case basis. I can't give you an absolute answer to that. The problem that it comes, I understand your issue. The problem that we have in law enforcement in the field as a deputy sheriff is how we're supposed to verify that. And it depends on what time of day or night and what ability we have to go and verify. That's the problem that we have, and that's why we're pushing the ID card. Because when I get somebody with a letter, and the letters that we've seen so far, none of them are very consistent. The formats from one end of the spectrum to the other. They're filling the blanks for the most part. The only consistency that I've seen among the letters is a doctor's ID number. And all that ID number tells us, when we run it through the board, the California Medical Board, if that doctor has a valid license. That's all it tells us. So that's problematic. The issue of officer doing an interview, the question for us in the field is how long do we take to verify that letter, and what process do we have to verify it? So that's one of those cases, and the way the law reads, if we're not sure, then we push it to court. It's not a bar from arrest, but it can be a defense in court. And you're going to hear this over and over again from us, so I'll apologize, but the only way that we can streamline this and give you a more legitimate answer or a more solid answer is the ID card, because that way we can run the ID number, come back right away with the response, and if everything comes back valid, you're on your way.
Okay, the next question is basically if a qualified patient or primary caregiver has a doctor's recommendation that has this quantity does not meet the qualified patient's medical needs, the qualified patient or primary caregiver may possess an amount of marijuana consistent with the patient's needs. How will a patient be assured that they will not be arrested or subject to a citation under the different sections? Our response to that, the best way is stay within the limits. Canna helps open, and stay within the limits and go back as many times as you need to go back. That's the best answer. The other way is actually have documentation from the doctor on you that states how many probably grams per day you have to have above and beyond the 8 ounces.
Good question?
Yeah, what about the limits on cultivation? The limits on cultivation for example, an indoor garden are very restricted. I mean, it's not enough. Plain and simple. I mean, I'll get a yield off of one out of one harvest. I'll get a yield that'll last me 2 months tops, and it takes me a lot more than 2 months to reach that yield.
Well, that's something you probably have to go back and get legislated, that you can have more than the 6 mature and 12 immature plants.
If I could pipe in just for a second here. Senate Bill 420 is a great bill, but it's got some problems. One of the problems is the guidelines are too low. Couldn't agree more. The police aren't there to increase the guidelines. That's what our elected officials are doing. So we need to put pressure on our elected officials, our city officials, our county board to raise the limits so they can go higher. At that time, then the police will say, well, these are the new limits in the county of Riverside, so the county now says you can have 25 plants. Well, you can now have 25 plants. They're here to enforce what the law says. The law says right now 6 mature or 12 immature. It needs more. It needs to be higher. But that's something else we need to work on. And that's why we're here. I want to encourage all you people to get involved so we can go before our county board of supervisors and says, look, here's the facts. We can get experts to come up there and testify that you're not going to be able to produce enough on this. We need to raise the limit to 10 plants or 12 plants or whatever it is. You get turnouts like this at a county board of supervisors meeting, let me tell you, they'll listen to us.
Now, is.
Well, wait, I don't want to go into too much discussion here because I wanted to get all these questions, and then we're going to open it up to broad
Because
discussion.
a lot of these questions, just if I may add, we already do have covered in here, so just let me go through it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, next question was, if a Riverside County medical marijuana patient with a Riverside County issued ID card visits a friend in San Bernardino and gets stopped by the police and they find marijuana in his or her possession, will they honor the ID card and not arrest even though San Bernardino County is not issuing ID cards? And the question goes on to say, would you be able to contact your counterpart in San Bernardino Sheriff's Office and find out what the policy is on this? Well, as most of you probably know, San Diego County has totally gone the other direction, and they've already filed suit with the state of California arguing the law. San Bernardino has jumped on board with that as well, as we understand. So the answer to that is, number one, I can't tell you what San Bernardino is going to do with absolute certainty. And number two, no, we won't go to another agency. And as Captain Kilday said at the beginning of this, we're speaking for the Riverside County Sheriff's Department in our policy only. In the valley, in the Coachella Valley, I will tell you one thing. The other chiefs of police that we have met with are watching what we're doing. They're watching how we're dealing with it, and pretty much we're paving the road, so to speak, is probably how they're going to handle it down the road. So our purpose, again, here is basically to get as much information and to try and work through this issue as the law reads now. The biggest problem we have is, just like the previous question, we have the same issue. It's not clearly defined, and we don't like things where you sit on one side, we sit on the other side, and nobody knows where the line is in a lot of cases. And that's what's mostly problematic about this issue. So the only way we're going to get it is through dialogue and giving you our perspective, and that's the best we can do for you and tell you what we are going to do. But again, a lot of them are handled on case-by-case basis, because in our job, nothing is absolute. Because you can find the exact same person the very next day and have totally different circumstances.
Okay, what are the conditions under which Riverside County law enforcement will assist federal officers in arresting medical marijuana patients who are legally entitled to use marijuana medicinally under state law? Well, obviously you know there's a conflict between federal and state law. Under federal law, possession, cultivation, furnishing, selling of marijuana is illegal still. We have numerous deputies that are on joint task forces with state, federal, and local agencies. And if we're asked to assist, we'll assist.
Would you be the supplier of the information to the federal agency to assist to actually identify or apprehend an individual medical marijuana patient? I think that's our concern, is that information will be disseminated between the state officers and the federal officers, in as much that maybe you might have a particular state officer that says, oh, I don't like it that we're going to have to let this guy go because he's a medical marijuana patient, so we'll call these other guys over here that are deputized federal officers and we'll just deal with them in a federal court. That's what we want to try to prevent, is those sorts of circumstances where information that's obtained by a state officer is disseminated to a federal officer in that fashion.
Again, you hit it. A lot of them are cross-designated as federal officers also on these joint task forces. Now, in them working collectively, are they going to share their intelligence information and the information they have? Yeah, they are.
Well, there have been other counties that have instructed and put the county board of supervisors have instructed the sheriff's department to have a bifurcation of efforts between their federal and their state efforts. So what you're saying is that we need to basically go to our county board of supervisors and make sure that order comes from them if that's what's necessary.
If that's what you deem appropriate, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, I'm reading the next question. I think it's one that we've already answered, but I'll go through it here real quick. What proof of qualified patients or caregivers' participation in co-op will law enforcement accept? Is a photocopy of a patient's caregiver's state-issued medical ID card, medical marijuana ID card, sufficient? Would law enforcement require additional statements of participation? If so, what data would law enforcement request cooperatives to maintain to prevent seizure, arrest, confiscation, and dismantling of patient's cards?
I think you answered that by saying that we need the various documents that you outlined.
Well, I think there's one more element to this one, and again, it's from having the opportunity to go to Canahill and talk to Stacy. I think I would add one extra thing in there, especially if you're acting as a co-op or you're acting as a caregiver, is a signed agreement from those individuals saying, I have these 5 cards and all 5 of these people have signed off saying that we're the primary caregiver. Now, I'm not an attorney, but we work in the legal field and we present cases. If I was standing on your side, I would probably say it would probably be in your best benefit to have as much documentation to prove that, number one, it's a co-op, and number two, that yes, these people that I have these cards on are legitimately people that I'm assigned to be a care provider for. So having that additional letter, I think would be beneficial to you, is to have a letter saying that each one of those patients I am providing or working with this group, or I am allowing them to be my care provider.
Okay, what happens if some of the participants do not have a state-issued medical marijuana card, ID card? Suppose a total of 10 patients are participating in a cooperative cultivation. 5 have the ID card, 5 don't. Gets back to the same question, or the same answer. Have the card.
Yeah.
And then you don't have a question. Because if you don't have the card, then we're into the verification issue again that we can't verify. And then you get into the gray area again, whether you have a verified recommendation or not. So our recommendation and suggestion is have the card, the ID card.
Talk about having a greater amount necessary to indicate directly a physician's written recommendation.
And the question was if the breakdown is directly on the physician's recommendation as to an amount per gram, per day, per weekly, that's something that will satisfy your requirements for knowing that it's an amount greater than the state minimums.
Well, you bring us into your next question as well. Okay, and again, I'll go back to that other question. I think it was a great question about yield and how much you can yield. You know, you're now talking about us going in and making contact and dealing with the actual grow. That's beyond the normal field officer's expertise. I'll be quite upfront with you. I worked narcotics or dope and both for a little while, but I don't have the expertise of one of our major narcotics officers. And I'll tell you right now, if we came across a grow and we were concerned as to whether it was legitimate or not, we'd probably call in those agents. We'd probably call in our Special Investigations Bureau, because they would have more experience to decide how are they going to determine what the yield is, how are they going to determine how much is there. And the problem that you have in that, from reading my literature and reading the literature that Lenny gave to us, it depends on who you talk to. Depends on who you talk to is how they're calculating it.
Well, that's what we want
that's
to
part
find
of the
out. What
problem.
yardstick are we going to use? And that's, like you say, it leads into the next question is how much weight per square foot of canopy space are we going to acknowledge to be usable medication?
Well, and the answer at this point is there isn't one.
Well, the NIDA has one that they've published.
Okay, but there isn't one that's already been recognized. You're asking me, from the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, have we adopted one?
Have you recognized one method or another is what I'm trying to ascertain. Either the NIDA's method or anybody else's. Or even your own that we can have.
I would have to contact our Special Investigations Bureau and see what they're using.
Can we get possibly somewhere down the future a written policy as to we're using these formulas to calculate our yields tables?
Well, I know our department right now is looking into putting out a draft memorandum as far as how we're to respond. And that's one thing that I will tell the people that are actually starting to draft it, you know, that maybe that's something we should have.
Well, just to start. I know that these things take time to develop, but that's all I'm trying to do is plant the seeds so that we can have that.
That's what we're here for. Okay. That's definitely a question that I will take back and see if we can have
Marty,
that
do you have something on this?
Yes, your expert, that Riverside County has, Mr. Tui, in recent cases has multiple different ways of handling this. Are we going to be able to get, like Doug said, a for sure thing from Officer Tui? He is your expert.
One of our experts, yes.
One of them, and they're basically all on the same page on it. He has said in one case 12 pounds is okay. In our case, 6 pounds was too much. In another case, 15 pounds was okay. He's wavering. We need to lock it down.
I think that's what Doug was saying. We need to lock it down. I agree with you. I agree with you that we do. So what's your question as far as for me?
The question,
Marty?
You said you're letting in a bunch of your experts, and I know you're experts.
Marty?
That's what I've got a problem with.
Marty?
Is your experts.
Marty, one of the
Okay.
things that came out of our first meeting we had with the Sheriff's Office and with Under Sheriff Lingle is there now. Deputy Under Sheriff Lingle is like the second man in the Sheriff's Department, right under Sheriff Bob Doyle. And he was at this meeting and he agreed that we need to hash some of these things out. And there's going to be meetings.
Now with Tui. Tui's
Well, wait a second, Mark.
Listen, there's going to be meetings in which this is going to be discussed and worked on. And I don't think we're going to solve this problem here today. But he has he has promised us further meetings where we can get these things resolved out so that Tui and all the other officers will all be on the same page when they come across a collective grow or any kind of grow. And right now, no one's ever given them any direction. They all kind of pick it up here or pick it up there. We're going to sit there and work with the police so they will all be on the same page, and the patients will be on the same page, and we'll all have the same definition of what it's going to be. But that needs to be worked on. Right now, we've gotten to the point where the police are willing to say, you have the ID card, you don't have more than the amount of plants that are in the guidelines, we're going to walk away, we're going to leave you alone. That's an amazing bit of progress in 6 months. Now we're going to be working on how we're going to be able to make these other determinations. It's like I said at the very beginning, the police need very definitive guidelines. They don't like wiggle room. Like I said, 45 miles an hour on Date Palm Drive is what they want to hear. They don't want to say, well, you can determine what the speed limit is. They want to see the speed limit on a sign there. It's the same thing with this. There's more things that need to be worked on, and I hope that you will be involved with these groups when we start talking. I know you will be.
My only thing is, like I said, you just stated that they're picking in here and picking in there.
That's
their own people.
Because no one has
gone
took
ahead
that. Marty,
That's what we're doing.
that's what we're
Trying to get
doing. The
standards.
purpose is to give those people definitive guidelines. They don't pick here and they don't pick there. It's picked for them. They've told them this is what it is, period. And that's what they have to enforce. And right now, even so, let's point out, is that the guidelines are fairly specific. I know what you're talking about, pound quantity, this is all if you have more. If you don't want to have any concern about law enforcement hassling you, this is what, and you can tell me if I'm saying this right or wrong, this is what I'm telling people, and I want to make sure I'm not telling them wrong. If you have the ID card, and you do not have more than the guidelines allow, which is 6 mature plants or 12 immature plants, and you do not have in your possession more than 8 ounces of marijuana, if you have that or less, and the ID card, they're going to say thank you very much and leave you alone. Is that correct?
They just said that's not a guarantee. He just said that.
If it's a fraudulent card.
We said it's a fraudulent card or this kind of stuff, but other than that, unless there's some kind of suspicious activity going on or something.
Absolutely.
Yes. There you go. This is where we are now. We need to go further. But what this whole thing is about is that we want to show law enforcement has this feelings about marijuana that we feel doesn't fit the true picture of marijuana.
It's a jobs issue.
And we want to show law enforcement that marijuana is not going to cause them more problems. It was handled medicinally in this kind of way. It will actually benefit society. We have now approached this point here where law enforcement is willing to say, all right, you got a card, you can have this much, this kind of stuff. As time goes on, and if no problems develop, we'll be able to go further. If problems develop because of how far we've gone now, then we're going to have to go backwards. But I don't think problems are going to develop. I think what's going to happen is more and more people are going to find out about the health and medicinal benefits of marijuana, and more people are going to want it as it becomes more accepted, things will be easy. Right now, let's go one step at a time. Right now, let's see if we have any problems. Now, law enforcement is comfortable working with the ID card and with these limits. That's a good step. Let's see if we have any. If we don't have any problems this way, if things work out okay, then we can start going further. But let's see how things go. We're here today to talk about what can be done today, right now. So you can use this medicine, you can use it safely, and not have to live in constant fear that you're going to be hauled off to jail. That's what we're here for. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. I think you've gone through all the questions, haven't you? All right, so let's open this up to questions. And remember, people, this is not an inquisition. We're not here to drag them through the pits and to draw and quarter them here. We're here to ask the questions and get answers. Now remember, the answers you may get may not be what you want to hear. Don't get into a shouting match with them over that. If there's not what you want to hear, then let's contact your legislators and get it changed so you can hear what you want. Okay, let's have the gentleman over there and then Levon. Okay?
Yes, can somebody from out of Riverside get a card from Riverside County Health Department, and is that valid?
We're not allowed to issue cards except for residents of Riverside County. And I understand, I had a conversation with Stacy last week about that. So we're going to research it because I guess the first line says that if you're a resident of the state, you can get a card. But then they put on the other layer that you have to be a resident of the county that's issuing the card. So we're going to try and clear that up.
What if we have dual county citizenship like it is?
I think you have a resident. I think you have one legal residence. I don't think you have dual residency.
Okay, yeah.
If you can prove residence in Riverside County, we're not going to ask if you have it someplace else.
Some people have a house in Orange County, some have one in Palm Desert. So.
Just bring a utility bill from the one in Riverside.
Right.
That's all they want
We're
to
not
see.
going to ask you if you have more than one. We don't say is this your primary. If you can prove you're a resident, then you'll get a card.
Yeah.
But in answer to your question is that we cannot issue a card unless you're a resident of Riverside County.
I have a question that pertains to that.
Okay.
What about for those that belong to a collective or a co-op that is not in the county, and in a county, I live in San Bernardino County, and we have a collective, and I have patients that live in this county.
Right.
How do I go about being protected for providing medicine?
Are you talking about the caregiver card?
Is that possible? Can we live in another county and be a caregiver?
That's actually a good question.
It says that, I'll read the law briefly on this because it's a real brief sentence, and it says, an individual who has been designated as a primary caregiver by more than one qualified patient or person with an identification card. If every qualified patient or person with an identification card who has designated that individual as a primary caregiver resides in the same city or county as the primary caregiver. So you cannot have people in two counties and provide for them according to the state law.
What's happening here?
That's what they wrote into
What's
it.
happening here is we're confusing caregivers and collectives and co-ops. They're not the same thing, and they're treated differently in the law.
Right.
A caregiver is somebody that you designate to grow the medicinal marijuana for you. A collective, a co-op, is where patients come together and they organize to either obtain their marijuana and then distribute to them or grow their own marijuana. It's a whole different situation, and the rules and regulations covering caregivers are not the same ones that covers collectives and co-ops.
My point.
In terms of answering the question regarding the caregiver, you are allowed to have one out-of-county patient.
That is correct, yes. One.
I have a question. I don't know, I have been doing a lot of research on the laws and on the issues because I like to know what I'm up against. But I've come across the Constitution of California when it comes to the federal and the state, and I can't read it word for word, but I had a copy of it and I should have brought it, but it states that if the state and federal are in conflict on the laws, then the laws are per the state and not the federal.
We tell the constitutionality of that ballot initiative or the ballot initiative has been challenged in the Supreme Court.
So when my question to you is, this is a state law, and since I am a citizen of this state and I have an identification card, okay, my information, I do not want to be given to and say, okay, you're a federal agent, listen, I got someone for you that's breaking the law, when by the state law, I'm protected.
Well, you're confusing your applying for your card, because the County Department of Health has a different process than we would, as I understand, as far as release of information.
Right, you didn't.
Yeah.
The basic
You want to
question
tell
is-
what the release and information?
The basic question is very simple. How does the Sheriff's Department get around the state constitution? Basically, the state constitution says that you cannot be a federal agent when it comes to this type of a law, that you have to give up your job. How do you get around that?
I don't believe that's what the Constitution says. So I think we have a difference in interpretation of the
It's
Constitution.
very specific. When state and federal laws are in conflict, the state law overrules the federal law. It's very, very specific, 3.5. So when you take your oath to the state constitution, then the federal constitution. How do you deal with that within yourself? Are you a state officer or are you a federal officer?
The federal hires them for those hours.
But how do you deal with the conflict inside yourself?
Inside myself?
Yeah.
I don't have a conflict inside myself.
Marty, the problem here is, once again, this is this gray area that they refer to. It's interpretation law. We interpret it one way, they interpret it another way. So we have to see to it that directions are given to them by our legislative, our board of supervisors, by our city council, saying, this is the way we want you to enforce this law. That's what we need to do. Otherwise, it's up to interpretation.
Didn't our Attorney General already do that, stating that the federal law has nothing to do with state law?
The Attorney General said they cannot arrest, they cannot enforce federal law. It didn't say they cannot cooperate with federal officials.
Oh my God.
I know, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I agree with you. I don't like it.
Give me a break, folks. I'm sorry. Give me a break.
You got your break, Marty.
Here.
What?
Let's split words.
That's what the law's all about, splitting
Now,
words.
each look in the mirror and state that? Split those words?
Marty,
As he's a human being?
Marty, calm down. Marty, calm down. You know, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%, but that's only our interpretation. That's the whole thing about laws. You interpret laws. And we try to make the laws as specific as possible. 45 miles an hour. Unfortunately, that part of the Constitution isn't quite as specific. It says you can't enforce federal laws. It doesn't say you can't cooperate with federal officials. Now, one would think, well, that's kind of logical, but that's not the way the law works. The law works is not logical all the time, unfortunately. So we need to put pressure on our legislative leaders to tell them to do that. That's what we need to do. Just like it was the pressure we put on them, on our legislative leaders. They got the ID card program okay here in Riverside County. That made it possible for them to sit there and say, now, if you have the ID card, your chance of being arrested are practically nil if you follow the law.
I don't get
that. Let's deal with the other issue.
I have a problem. I go to the doctor in San Diego. I live in Riverside County. Sometimes I run out of medication. You know, I'm all over the state. I don't understand. And then, like he just mentioned, when he seeds, it only grows for a certain length of time. He runs out, then where do we go? He said something about Riverside County, and he did state earlier that he would cohabitate with the feds if they call for their assistance.
So what's the question?
You got stipulations here. You putting me in a box.
Well, if you're doing something wrong, they're even looking for you. And if you're not,
No, but I go to the doctor in San Diego. So what if I want to get my medicine in San Diego, but I'm in Riverside County?
Your Riverside County card.
Your Riverside County card that you get protects you no matter where you're in the state. So if you have less than 8 ounces of marijuana on you, you should be protected. Now, the problem is, San Diego County sheriffs may say, we don't care what the law says. We're going to arrest you anyway. And they can do that. There's nothing you can do about it. What they're saying is they cannot tell you what San Diego County is going to do or San Diego County. They only say what Riverside County is going to do. And the problem is what happens if they do arrest you and you have the ID card and you have less than 8 ounces on you, then hopefully you will hire a lawyer and take the court and sue the pants out of several $1 million out of San Diego County. Then they'll start listing. And our problem has always been is that when law enforcement has done things that we felt is not correct, we've never been able to get the wherewithal to find a lawyer willing to donate their time or raise the money to hire a lawyer to go to court and sue them to stop this. And until we start taking these kind of actions, they don't know, they don't have any directions. They have no directions from the court. They have no directions from their legislative officials. So they decide what they want. We need to give, law enforcement needs very specific directions. And it's up to us to get those directions for them.
Right, that's what I was saying about, like the guy here, he said that he's in San Bernardino County. I like to go over there too.
You can, if you have the Riverside ID card,
Right,
and you should
but
be okay.
He's not
But who
there.
knows? What?
What happens if he's not there?
You're at the mercy of the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department.
I'm not talking
Good luck.
about the sheriff, I'm talking about for the medication.
What was that?
I'm talking about for the cannabis. Everything is being specific right in this little box in Riverside County.
That's right. Riverside County was the first county in Southern California to issue the ID card. And I thought we were still the only county, but I understand Santa Barbara County is now issuing the ID card. So there's now 2 counties. But Riverside was the first. And the reason Riverside was first is because of you people here. And I believe you were quoted in the paper saying it was the pressure that we put on the health department to get this card out here. So law enforcement can sit there and say, all right, you have a card, we can check on you, you're okay, we're going to leave you alone.
We are closing the doors, closing the box up to
We know we are opening the box in Riverside County, and we are hoping that the other counties will see how well it works here in Riverside County and say, well, we should join in because Riverside County's got their act together. That's what we're hoping to see. We want San Bernardino County to see it. We want Orange County to see it. We want San Diego County. We want Los Angeles. We want them to see how well it works, so they won't be afraid to do that. And that's the fact that these sheriff's officers here today is showing how well it works. Pierre.
Thank you, Lenny. I want to thank the captains for coming out here today. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming out here. I myself am a Nevada patient. I drove 4 hours to come to this meeting. In the state of Nevada, we haven't even had this kind of meeting. So, again, I want to thank you for coming. My question is in Nevada, we also have to pass a background check. And here in Palm Desert, I was trying to open up a dispensary or a co-op myself. And I was wondering if there was any way I could work with the gentleman so that even the patients have to pass a background check. Because we have to pass it. And would you be open to that kind of
We wouldn't be open to that.
Let me start by saying, the city of Palm Desert.
Well, let the police officer answer, please.
City of Palm, like I said, we're treading new ground. The city of Palm Desert has its dispensaries. They have the one. There's a moratorium on any other one starting. We've had great cooperation with Mr. Hogganall. We've actually gone in, looked at his operation, tried to learn how the process works. One of the reasons why we push the medical marijuana card is because that background stuff is already done through a bifurcated system. The county Department of Health, through the state and everything, do their own background, and it's not the dispensary operator who's doing that. And it gives us an independent person to go to, and a system that we can do through the internet to verify that. One of the things that the city of Palm Desert is doing, because the way the law reads, it allows this county and the city to regulate how they're going to have this operate within their city in the spirit of allowing the medication to be dispensed. So the city of Palm Desert actually, at our last meeting, there was an agreement made that Canna Help, which is basically going to be our test case to decide how we're going to regulate in the city of Palm Desert, is that it was a requirement that they have all their patients have medical marijuana cards. The issue of the dispensary owner or the person running the dispensary having a card, I would think that would be something that should be had as well. In our case, our dispensary owner is the care provider for a whole bunch of other people. Therefore, he has to have a card saying he's a care provider. So he also goes through the background and gets a card as well. But that services that background issue.
Craig?
I have a two-part question that is both respectful, sincere, and genuine. I'd like to ask both of you officers. Are you aware of the value, destruction, and harm to individual life your officers cause by enforcing political agenda laws of prohibition? Second part, do you think each officer participating in this harm escapes individual responsibility even though they are just following orders?
Why don't you repeat the first part of the question?
First part of the question, are you aware of the value, destruction, and harm to individual conscious life your officers cause by enforcing political agenda laws of prohibition?
I don't think they should be answering that question in this form right now. I think that puts too much pressure on them. We are in a test program. We're in our infancy, and you guys are asking questions for something that there's no answers to. We're just starting. I know, no, it's not.
Well, first of all, I'll answer a portion of it, okay? As much as I feel comfortable with, because again, I'm a guest here, and we at any time that we feel that it gets hostile to the point we're not comfortable, we have the ability to get up and walk right out of here, and I don't have a problem with that. But the mere fact that we're sitting in these chairs is an example of the fact that the issue of prohibition is something that we're looking at. the issue of the fact that the California law reads the way it is, and that we're trying to work with a group such as yourself on how to iron out those issues, I think speaks to that question and why we're here. I have no problem at all, with the integrity of what we're here for. And I think we're here to move forward and to try and iron out those issues. As far as any past destruction or any kind of problem, the way you worded it, at this point, we're bound by California law. It doesn't matter what my moral issues are. It doesn't matter what my position is on medical marijuana, whether I believe that it has medicinal purpose or it doesn't. Our job is to follow the law. And the way the law reads right now, it opens that door to patients being able to have this medication. Okay? But we're trying to iron out the issues of our officers in the field to make sure that in the spirit of the law, it gets done correctly. And that's the best answer I can give you for both parts.
Hand back there. Yeah.
Location and procedure for obtaining a card.
Like you go to Riverside, where in Riverside?
Application. Victoria, you want to answer that question?
What's the procedure, what's the location?
The procedure is that you have to come in person. At this time, it is only available in Riverside. We are considering our options to have a
And
site.
where in Riverside is one about?
Oh, well, we're considering our option to have a site out here, but it's at 6370 Magnolia Avenue in Riverside. It's a bank building, Bank of America building. We're on the second floor. We recommend that you get an appointment, and that number is 1-800-358.
888. It's 888-358.
What is it, 1-800?
It's 888-358.
It's 888?
Yep. Here it is. First right on the card.
Okay.
No, I think that's the number that the police call.
That's Riverside County's number. This is the number.
No, that's the number.
Oh, that's the number for verification, pardon me.
Right.
Okay.
The number is.
Here, we got it.
The number is 888.
It is 888.
358. 7932.
7932.
7932.
And I'd like to
pull that number
let
and make an
in
appointment
here. My name is
to go to this location.
The executive coordinator for MAPP and the patient's advocate. We've been working with your department very closely to cut through all of this locally. You can get your information from Canna Health. We have the county's information in complete forms that you can fill out so that it makes the procedure going to Riverside County a little bit more expedient for their office, which is small. They've got some very nice ladies that are working in there. And in terms of the information, is it also available on their website?
Well, I didn't hear anything you said.
Oh,
Why don't you continue to tell me what I need to bring with me?
Right. What he was saying is that Can Help actually has the forms that we use, but the form you need to fill out, there's a form that you can fill out that requests a card, and you can get that off our website. When you come in, there'll be an application there that you can fill out, or you can get the application online. Either place. The application doesn't take very long. Some people have already gotten their
Most
cards.
people can't go online.
This is the application that I got online.
That's not for us. Well, I'll talk. Let me finish. When you come
Let's
in,
get rid of gray areas.
Okay.
What do you do?
you come in, you bring your recommendation from your doctor.
And that's a letter from the doctor
That says
saying
that
that
you-
so-and-so.
Needs to use it for this condition.
Okay.
Then you fill out an application form. We
At
will-
this location.
Yes, we will take your picture, and then you will leave that information with us. We will send a fax to your doctor that says, this person in fact, are you recommending the use of marijuana for this person for this condition? And they'll say yes. We've only had 2 doctors say no, so pretty much we've been successful. We ship that information to Sacramento with no name. It only says your picture,
Right.
and then it comes back and we give you the card.
So the card, so there's no,
Oh, money. Oh, yeah, you got paid.
there's no file that has your name. It's all by number.
No, the file that has your name is in my office.
Not at the state. The state
The
does
state
not
doesn't
that.
get it.
How long does the process take? Okay, so the state does have your name and
No,
address.
no name. The state does not. Only at the local office in a file drawer. Never scanned in. Never disseminated to anybody without a big time subpoena or a search warrant. That's the only way they can get it.
I would mention one thing that you should bring with you. You should bring some kind of state ID card with your picture on it to verify you are the person that's on the
Positive ID, like
that you're the person. That the letter of recommendation has your name on it. That you are indeed that person.
So you
Now,
bring out your
if you
state
don't
driver's
have-
license.
If your driver's license is from a different county, what will be an alternative ID that shows that you're a resident of Riverside County? Does the utility bill cover that?
Your rent receipt, your utility bill,
A utility bill would do.
A rent receipt from your landlord, or a lease.
mortgage statement.
Oh, a DMV, your registration, that's what I use.
We take cash, we'll take a check, and we take MasterCard and Visa. No American Express.
No Discover.
No Discover American Express.
So the card is only good for 1 year, right?
Right, from the date of issuance.
Then will you contact us when it comes up for renewal?
No, there's an expiration date on the card.
Okay, so it's up to.
Right?
Yeah, there is an expiration date.
Right, so as you get closer to the date, probably within 30 days, like your driver's license.
Yeah, we'll get something in the
Right.
mail.
No.
It's up to you to calendar yourself. You're gonna have to put a big red check on your
Right.
calendars.
Will we be able to re-register through the mail?
No.
So you need to take a new picture each year,
A
right?
new picture and new verification, so your physician's gonna have to rewrite the recommendation and, again, the fee, all of that. So it's like a whole new process.
And the renewal fees
Are other counties
$100 per
$100
fee.
also?
You know,
Just Riverside?
I'm not sure what other counties are charging. I know that, that the counties that we've talked to indicate that they're gonna be within that price range.
Because that's a lot of money.
If you're on disability or
Not
something.
compared to the
Medical.
price of marijuana, and not compared to the price of hiring a lawyer to get you out of jail.
No, not Medi-Cal.
But
And,
it's a
okay,
lot.
and if you have Medi-Cal, it's $50. So make sure you bring your Medi-Cal card if you have
There's
Medi-Cal.
another thing we should know.
Right.
You do some kind of discount for veterans?
No, sorry, they didn't allow for that.
Maybe you can get the Department of Defense to help fund your costs.
Yeah, right.
Was there any questions?
Yes, the lady in the back of the room there.
Yes, thank you. I hope I'm not asking a redundant question. This is my first time at the meeting, although I do try to keep track of your emails, Lenny. Thank you. You've done a wonderful job. I have gone to my doctor, who's a general practitioner, not a spinal cord injury doctor, etc. I've asked him about having a prescription for medical marijuana, and he said, I am so sorry, I will not do that for you. So, where do I go? I am a Medi-Cal client, and I am limited as to which doctors are available to me. Also, because of my unique circumstances, I do not have the luxury of just getting in my van and going anywhere to find a doctor or to apply for this card, etc. So, what kind of leg up, if you will, do you have for people in my situation? If I do need to get to Riverside, I do have a van, but I don't always have a driver. And I'm curious because I've been taking myself off of all sorts of pharmaceuticals that the doctors have had me on, and I'm down to just very bare bone medication, and I want to get back to Mother Nature's best gift. So, answers, please. Thank you.
Well, in terms of, I cannot recommend a physician. I couldn't do that for anybody in any situation because of, because I work for the Department of Public Health.
Does it have to be a special doctor?
No, it has to be a physician, or he or she has to be a person who's licensed by the state of California as a physician or surgeon. That's the only requirement. And I would imagine there's people in here who can make recommendations for a physician that might be able to help you. And
Because I wouldn't be in a position to make 12 appointments and pay $100 a shot only to be told, no, we don't believe in that. We're
Right.
big pharma.
right.
Maybe I have my answers here.
Right, I'm sure. Yeah,
We do have answers for you, or we can give it to you after the meeting.